Okay, so I know 2023 has had a ton of amazing releases. We've gotten survival horror titles like Dead Space. We've gotten some action-oriented games like Final Fantasy 16 that just released today, actually. And we've also had like action RPGs like Diablo. If you're really into Diablo 4 is a phenomenal game to play. The problem is all of these new games are super expensive. So as someone who's always trying to cut back on how much I spend on games, I'm always on the lookout for games I can kind of go back to and replay, games that I can kind of get even more value out of that I've already spent money on ages past, right? Today I wanted to talk about a very beloved game of mine. The game's called Witcher 3. You might have heard of it, a small indie title. And this game has kind of been life-changing for me. It was kind of my introduction to really big open worlds, my introduction to fantasy-oriented games. Before this, I played open world games, but they weren't in the same vein. The open worlds were maybe a little bit smaller, or the open worlds weren't so fantasy-oriented. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Witcher 3 and tell you guys why you should definitely go back to it here in 2023. I know I already mentioned the fact that new games have been super expensive. If you are thinking about buying newer games, I would tell you to hold off even if you do have the money. And one of the big reasons is right now games are releasing in a state where there's a ton of bugs. Although Diablo 4 has had a relatively good launch, not all games have had that in the recent months, right? So back in December, Callisto Protocol released, and that was in an absolute state on everything but the PS5. So if you are wanting to play something, I would say that maybe go back to The Witcher 3. It recently had a next-gen patch that they released. I mean, not super recently, it's been a couple months now, but the reason I say go back to it right now is because the developers have had some time to not only release the next-gen patch, but fix a lot of the issues that the next-gen patch brought with it. The other big positive factor if you get back into The Witcher 3 right now is it's so cheap. Even if you have played it, for example, on console before, I would say it's a good idea to maybe try it out on PC now, since it's no longer that really high price of entry. So if you've played it on console and you really want to experience the keyboard and mouse, go try it out on PC. It's going to be super cheap on Steam. Steam's going to have the summer sale, I think, coming up on the 29th. So I'm sure it's going to be on sale then. It's a really good price of entry. You're going to get all the DLCs if you get the complete edition. I think they only sell the complete edition if you buy like this next gen version. I'm not even sure if you can get the game without the DLCs anymore, but it's definitely a worthwhile price. You're going to get hundreds and hundreds of hours of content. Me personally, I had over 130 hours on my PlayStation 4 when I originally played it, and then I played it on PC 2 more times. I'm on my second playthrough on my PC. My first playthrough had about 180 hours, including both of the DLCs. And the playthrough I'm doing right now, put in another 30 or so hours. And I'm nowhere near the end, right? I just got to Novigrad, if you guys have played the game before. Having this much content at such a low price, right now is the perfect time. Don't spend $70 on brand new games when you don't have to. If you can go back and replay some of these games that are kind of more refreshed now with these next gen updates. So what is the next gen update that they release? It's mostly graphics. There are a lot of features that CD Projekt Red implemented in terms of ease of life. The ease of life features are really good to have, and they will kind of help make your experience a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more smooth. It's not as glitchy and buggy when you're riding your horse, Roach. Roach isn't going to be as, I mean, he's still a little bit gimmicky, but he's not going to be as gimmicky as he was before when the game originally released. Having those fixes out there and also being able to play in this beautiful new lighting that they've implemented, it's an absolutely amazing experience. So the game does have better lighting just as like a base next gen upgrade feature, but they also implemented ray tracing. This is something that's optional. Not all machines are going to be able to run it, but if you're on PC and you really want to experience the highest end graphics, I would suggest turning on those ray tracing features. If you have a 4090, you should be able to hit somewhere around 50 to 60 FPS. I know that's that sounds really bad for a 4090. 4090 at most modern games can definitely crush over 100 FPS, but game is pushing the most updated technology out there, so you don't expect to be able to run this game at 60 FPS with a 2080 Ti or something like that. You do need some better hardware if you're planning on playing this on PC. I think if you have a console, it's pretty easy to run on console. I mean, you don't really have to mess with the settings, right? So I think it runs well on console, and you'll still get a lot of these graphical updates. You won't get a game that looks as good as it would on PC. Obviously, when it comes to story and lore, they haven't made too many changes. There are some extra side missions you could partake in. These side missions are really lengthy. I mean, you could be doing these extra side missions for like a couple extra hours. For a free update that didn't ask you for any extra money, that's a pretty good deal, right? You get an extra side mission, you get to spend an extra couple hours on something completely new. And I think the game's worth playing through even without those extra side missions. Every time you play through the story, it's slightly different because of the actions you take. So I urge you, if you were a super good guy the first time around, maybe try and get the bad ending just to see what these other diverting paths kind of look like. The last thing I want to talk about is there are a few extras that are kind of just littered in there that you could come across. Like, for example, there's a bunch of new armor sets. The Nilfgaardian armor set looks kind of iffy, but you could kind of experiment with what kind of armor sets you like on yourself and also on the Nilfgaardian troops, and set that in the main menu, customize your experience through the game. And there are a few other cosmetic goodies that you could find yourself. I'm not going to spoil everything, but I think they've added a little bit to keep you interested. His point being, if you are looking for a game to play in 2023 and you don't want to spend a ton of money and you don't want to have to worry about a billion bugs and you want to kind of play a game that's pretty much polished at this point, I would say definitely go back to The Witcher 3. It's a low price of entry, and I loved this game when I first played it. Now I feel like I'm loving it even more. I'm appreciating the game even more. I'm finding out things in my current run that I never saw in my first 2 playthroughs of the game, right? So let me know what you guys think. Do you think this is a good game to go back to? Do you disagree with any of the things that I've said? Let me know. If you liked the video, if you liked my suggestion, maybe leave a like. If you didn't like my suggestion, go ahead and leave a dislike. That's okay too. And if you like these kinds of videos, like gaming oriented videos, maybe subscribe. I like to put my thoughts out there on games pretty often. So take it easy, guys. Bye.